Like, oh, everyone sucks here. This is just terrible. This is dire. He like puts himself out there as this trans ally debate lord. He doesn't know the difference between detransition and desist. Are the two sexes supposed to have experienced oppression and have not experienced oppression? If a man experiences oppression, does he have a claim to be a woman now? But men can't be like the opposite of that. Men can't be the absence of oppression, because then trans men aren't men. They're women, because trans men experience oppression. This is like what he does. He's not actually good at this. He's only winning because this person is clueless.
No.
I haven't looked at this guy in a while. Jovan Bradley. He's still going. Does Jovan convince her not to be a TERF? Should be a question mark there, but never mind. Apparently this person has debated a woman into becoming pro-trans or something. Well, have a look. Let's see if he's gotten better. I'm not a fan of Jovan Bradley. I've seen him do debates in which he like blatantly lies. He has this special definition of woman, which is something about you decide what a woman is, and then if you're the same as that, then you're a woman, which is identifying as one with extra steps. I can't remember the exact wording, but it's something about your schema of what a woman is, because you have to throw in a word that makes you sound intelligent, but I don't personally think this guy is very intelligent. Anyway, maybe he's gotten better. Let's see. Make sure you like the stream. Make sure you check the links in my description. You can super chat via YouTube now. You can join the channel. You can give memberships, etc., etc. Let's see what this debate is.
Hello, are you here to debate?
Good morning. Yes, I am.
Okay, can I just get your name, age, and pronouns, please?
Yes, my name is Nicole. I'm 25, and my pronouns are she, her.
Okay. Nicole, what topic did you want to debate?
It's important he knows your pronouns when he's addressing you directly, where he's never going to use them, you know.
About today?
I want to talk about the trans men, trans women debate topic.
Okay, what about it?
So,
Trans men/women are men/women.
so I understand the argument that, well, gender is a social construct, obviously. Gender and sex are different. But I also want to point out that a trans woman isn't necessarily a woman. They're a trans woman, and that's completely okay.
Let me ask you a question. Are black women women?
Yes.
Or are they black women?
Yes.
Black women are women because black women are female. That's the difference.
Well, what I mean by that,
You're saying I'm she, her, you're not a TERF. Well, I mean, the thing is, if you don't play his game, then you won't even get to talk to him, so...
I love you, Mary.
Thank you so much, Curiously Absent, for the $20. Thank you. Yeah, you kind of have to play these people's game to a certain extent, and I think I respect that. Like, it's annoying having to do the whole pronouns thing just to have a conversation with someone. I don't like the idea that people gatekeep these kind of interactions. At the same time, though, sometimes you have to do that. Like, do you want to actually just argue for 5 minutes about pronouns and get kicked because you don't want to play by his rules? Or do you just want to kind of allow this shit and carry on, you know what I mean?
well, you know what? They could be, and that's completely okay.
Let me ask you a question. Are black women women?
Yes.
Or are they black women?
Yes. Well, what I mean by that, well, you know what? They could be considered black women if you want to go that way.
But are they women still?
Yes, they are.
Okay, so it would be the same with trans people. Trans is just an adjective.
That's retarded. The key is in what defines woman. So you have to show why a trans woman has anything in common with every other kind of woman. Bear in mind, every other kind of woman is female except trans women. There still has to be some kind of through line. There has to be some kind of thing that they all have in common.
Just describe the type
That's
of woman
fair.
that they are.
But my main argument was even between different races, women.
Like, bear in mind, by the way, a lot of the people, this person is at least experienced. They sit here and do this stream after stream. So they're used to having these kind of conversations. Often the kinds of people that call in don't really do this very often, you know?
Collectively have different experiences in society than a man would. And I imagine that a trans woman, male to female, experiences their own struggles that a woman would not be able to relate to and a man would not be able to relate to.
Sure.
So I think it'd be fair if they had kind of their own category, and I think that'd be fine.
Can you name me one specific thing that all women go through, but that is similar to like, what's the one experience that all women?
All women There doesn't have to be an experience that all women share. What they share isn't an experience. What they share is that they all develop towards producing a large gamete, whether they do actually or not, whether they will or not, used to or not. They still developed to be able to do that, and something might have gone wrong, for example. It's not about what experience they have. A woman isn't a woman because of her experiences. She just is.
And share collectively.
Like, this is kind of a bullshit leading question, right?
Because the only one I can think of is like oppression, and trans women go through.
Like oppression, even this is a really dodgy point. When you think about women's oppression, as soon as you go anywhere in history, beyond about 100 years ago, maybe less, you're not talking about trans women anymore. You're talking about females. Women were historically oppressed on the basis of being female. And you can probably argue that they still are. For the purposes of this, what I'm saying is, if you're going to base it on oppression, then as soon as you go anywhere in history, you're not talking about trans women anymore. You have to suddenly, at a certain point, change the definition of women to make it consistent. That doesn't really make any sense.
Through that, so.
I'm sorry, go on. I'm sorry.
What's the one experience that all women share collectively? Because the only one I can think of is like oppression, and trans women go through that, so.
If oppression is all there is, then are the two sexes supposed to have experienced oppression and have not experienced oppression? If a man experiences oppression, does he have a claim to be a woman now? Like, this doesn't really make any sense. You can't use oppression to define what a woman is. Woman isn't some shared like experience of oppression. Not every woman even experiences oppression.
I'm sorry, go on. I'm sorry.
I said the only thing I can think of is like a level of like gendered oppression, and trans women go through that. So I don't know what the.
I mean, you could argue there are certain gendered oppressions that men go through. And all this is based on sex. You know, there are certain things expected of you that are not strictly sex-based, but are expected of you based on your sex.
What would be the one thing all
biologically, women do experience periods, I would say.
Some women don't. What about them? Are they not women because they don't go...
Well, their development was towards having periods, even if they don't have them. Some women don't experience oppression. If a woman is born into an incredibly rich family, gets married to an incredibly rich man who she is incredibly happy with, and gets to live the dream, what oppression has she faced? Therefore, not all women have experienced depression. Therefore, what common experience do all women have? Kind of none, right? So then maybe it's not about experiences. Maybe it's not about every woman having to have certain experiences. And we're kind of generalizing oppression as well. The oppression that a white woman and a black woman face are not likely to be the same.
They don't share that shared experience with you?
Is it based on chromosomes, or what is it that causes a woman to not have periods?
There could be
at a
litany,
base level, because birth control can stop it, but
there could be a litany of things. If somebody's born with vaginal agenesis and they don't have a reproductive system, they're not going to have periods, right?
Clearly, the design is a certain way and something went wrong. You can still kind of look at a person and with enough information work out that, yes, they're still a woman, even if they don't have certain things that a woman should have.
Some women are just like born infertile. Some women don't have periods. Like, what if this is the case? They can't relate to you on that level. So what is it? So why are they women?
Are exceptions oppressive? I'm not sure what you mean, actually. Expectations. Expectations can be oppressive. And I guess he's saying that all women experience like oppressive gendered expectations, but I don't think that's necessarily true. Don't you also have to be like, don't you have to actually feel like oppressed by said expectations? Isn't it partly dependent on how you perceive them and how they actually affect your life?
it's fair. Maybe it's not on a biological level then, because it is a social.
Oh, this person doesn't know what they're doing. They're just gonna fold at like the slightest questioning. But this isn't good. That like, this is retarded. Like, it's actually painful. Listen, I hope it's clear. There are plenty of like dumb TERFs out there as well as dumb like TRAs. So someone like this, because they're used to having these conversations, can get one over on someone. But that doesn't mean he's correct. It just means that this person isn't good at this. Like, what does this person think? Oh, that's fair. Oh, okay, so then are infertile women like a separate category from men and women? Are infertile men also their own category? Are infertile people in general a third sex or something like that?
On a biological level then, because
Like, here's the thing. What if in the future, some of these conditions we're talking about that render one infertile for the whole of their life, what if in the future we find cures for some of these things? So then that person was born infertile, born with a condition where they can't have kids, meaning that to this person's eyes, they're potentially not a woman or doesn't think that they fit the biological model. But then they get cured of that condition and start being able to have kids. So then they are a woman. Surely they always were a woman because they always had that potential.
Because it is a social construct. I feel like women are viewed differently than men are in society. Like,
Sure, if it's a level of patriarchal oppression, I would just argue trans women go through this. So
Is that even true? The thing is, trans women are used as a part of patriarchal oppression, potentially. Because women now can't have their own spaces away from males. When we know that males are overwhelmingly more likely to like sexually assault females, for example.
So they would be able to understand and share in that with you. They'd be able to share.
Yeah, this is not a good foundation for a category. Shared oppression. Like, first off, you have to show that it's the same oppression, which it just isn't. And it's still not a good category. He doesn't even let her talk. Yeah, I mean, that's part of his thing, right? A lot of these people, I mean, to an extent, I can't really blame him. It's his platform. He's going to be controlling over how it works. I don't really like how he does things. And like ultimately a lot of these people, they rely on sort of bewildered people coming across this, seeing shit they disagree with and just calling in on a whim, rather than having actually thought through their positions. They probably haven't heard a lot of these arguments. They don't really have the time to like process and think about them. So they just kind of fold on really like obvious shit. Which sucks. And I mean, listen, I've been susceptible to that myself because I'm not like a seasoned debater. I'm not used to the different kinds of points and or tactics these people use, you know?
Sharing that experience.
right, but they experience it in a different way. Because
Sure, just like black
I
women
would say
would
that a lot of
experience
trans
patriarchal
women
oppression differently than
don't
white women
experience that until
He really is bad at listening, though.
different way.
to sharing that experience.
Right, but they experience it in a
Yeah, that's the thing. If you can separate out oppression into different average experiences, like transphobia, racism, misogyny, stuff like that, then surely that suggests that this is a bad metric. Well, you'd have to show then that the kind of oppression that trans women face, for example, is exactly the same as women. But I don't see how that could possibly be true. Like, I'm never going to experience oppression on the basis that I menstruate because I don't menstruate, for example. I'm never going to have any issues with things like maternity leave or potentially being passed over for jobs because someone can either choose between me or a man, and the man isn't potentially going to get pregnant one day and need paying for not doing my job. You know what I mean? That's the kind of thing I don't have to worry about. I'm bigger and stronger. I'm less likely to be overpowered by a man. I probably don't have as much to worry about when it comes to things like sexual assault, because there's every chance that a man might see me that might have the idea that he wants to sexually assault someone, but see me and perceive me as a man. He doesn't really want to do that to a man. He wants to do it to a woman. Or sees me, I'm 5'10", I walk with purpose, you know what I mean? Maybe that's not a good target. Maybe I should look for someone weaker who is more likely to be female. There's a lot of things. It's presented as if these are good arguments because it's against someone that doesn't know what they're talking about and hasn't really thought about this for long enough or hasn't come up against these kind of arguments. But when you actually think about it and break down the stuff he's saying, it really doesn't make very much sense. And these aren't actually good arguments. And I'm guessing these kinds of people, they hear these kind of conversations all the time. They're probably used to giving this guy some level of like authority. They're probably taken in by his presentation as someone with more authority than he really deserves because he doesn't really know what he's talking about.
different way. Because
Sure, just like black
I would
women
say
would
that a lot of
experience
trans
patriarchal
women
oppression differently than
don't
white women would.
experience that until
Yeah, again, the big difference here is in every case you're talking about females until you get to trans women. So again, well, what's a woman to this person?
they visibly, I don't want to use the word pass, but that's a term that they use. They don't really experience
They're going to experience
that sort
it.
of thing.
They're going to experience it in a different way, but they're still going to experience patriarchal oppression, right?
To what extent do men face patriarchal oppression? We talk about things like, first off, things like homophobia. You talk about things like toxic masculinity, where a less masculine man might get like looked down on by his peers because he's not masculine enough. So surely men can experience patriarchal oppression as well in lots of different ways. So then experiencing patriarchal oppression surely doesn't mean that you're a woman automatically, because not just women experience it.
Just like black women and white women are going to experience patriarchal oppression in very different ways.
Yeah, so you unify them by saying, well, they're still all female.
Right. So just because they are experiencing it in a different way doesn't mean it's not still happening. And it's something that like black women and white women can empathize with each other. There may be differences in the way they experience the world, especially in terms of oppression, but they're still sharing in a collective oppression due from the hands of like the patriarchy. So I would just say like, this is the same for trans women. It will be different, but one of the ways that trans women experience that oppression is the demonization of trans identities, especially trans women identities. That's a way that they're...
Right.
I wish this woman would just ask, do you think men can experience patriarchal oppression? Because surely he doesn't think that that's not the case. Surely he would acknowledge that the patriarchy harms men as well.
But one of the ways that trans women experience that oppression is the demonization of trans identities, especially trans women identities. That's a way.
What about the demonization of like gay men in history, and even to an extent today? Does that mean gay men are women because they also experience oppression at the hands of the patriarchy? What about just effeminate men who are like straight, or like bisexual? What about any number of men who do any number of things that are considered effeminate and thus, you know, become targeted by toxic masculinity? This doesn't make any fucking sense, bro. I don't know how this person convinces so many people that he is smart, other than that he says what people want to hear. And that these people aren't very smart, so can't think of better arguments than what he's doing. And they're listening to someone who is also not very smart, so is folding to him. It's quite painful, honestly. I don't know how long I'm going to last of this.
Way that they're forced to suffer at the hands of the patriarchy.
Right. I do think the demonization of trans people is not right. It's not correct. My best friend growing up is a trans man, female to male.
He's like twitching and stuff. Can you see his like, I guess you can't see his, no, you should be able to. You can see like his hand and stuff. Like twitching and stuff. Like, Jesus.
And he's been dealing with what he went through because his parents allowed him to transition at a young age. And he is now struggling with the repercussions after that. He says that he honestly doesn't quite care that much. He transitioned. It's not something he can change at this point, but he would have been perfectly happy if he hadn't transitioned.
I think this was a setup call because this argument really was bad at arguments. I mean, I wouldn't be able to like substantiate that either way. To me, it seems more likely that plenty of these people just don't really know what they're talking about. And they're not like seasoned debaters or experienced debaters, should I say, like someone like Jovan is. Because he has a lot of these kind of conversations.
Okay, sure. But like my whole point of this is like when we're talking about what puts someone into the category of man and women, it can't be based on any biological fact, because
No, it can be.
human biology is too varied to create.
No, it's not. If you boil it down to which reproductive role you can take on, when there's only one, or which one you should be able to but for a problem, or will be able to if you're a child, used to be able to if you're elderly, then yes, you can boil it down to like a biological thing. Why is humanity sexually dimorphic? Because we're mammals, because that's the method by which we reproduce. So why wouldn't you focus sexual dimorphism about reproduction when that's its function? Again, we get the problem where these people, I don't know if he believes in like bimodal sex. I'm going to assume that he does, but I could be wrong. These people divorce what sex is supposed to be about from its meaning. They just take it as a bunch of clusters A and cluster B. Some people can have facial hair when they're female. Some people can have breasts when they're male. Oh, okay, well, if they were to have a child, and let's say that they're not infertile and they can, what would they be doing? Would they be impregnating, or would they be the impregnatee?
Create one specific set rule for biology. And if we're arguing it on a social aspect, then trans men and women face the same level of social oppression, if not more. I mean, if we look at gender, create one specific set rule for biology.
And the problem is, so there has to be one set rule, otherwise this whole thing falls apart, which there already is. We can do that. That's easy. It comes from understanding why we're sexually dimorphic. His one set rule based on patriarchal oppression doesn't work, because plenty of men are now women. It doesn't work.
And if we're arguing it on a social aspect, then trans men and women face the same level of social oppression, if not.
Wait, and if trans men experience patriarchal oppression, are they then women then?
Not more. I mean, if we look at gendered violence, black trans women specifically, black trans women experience the most gendered violence out of any social group. So like,
I'll take a source on that.
I'm just saying, if you're going to go, well, they can't be considered this category because we don't share in this level of interconnected oppression. I don't see that as holding water. I think it's very clear that you guys do.
But so many other people also do. So how do you choose which people who experience patriarchal oppression qualify as women and which ones don't? Like, I'm a bit baffled that this guy, like, has he not thought of any of this? I'm blown away. Usually when these people harp on about the patriarchy, one of the biggest things they make a point of is about how, for men, you get affected too. You get oppressed too in some ways. So, like, he's saying that biology can't be it, and then presenting a far worse model with far more holes in it. He doesn't believe in bimodal sex. He thinks there's varieties of sexes. Okay. And it's just coincidence that there's only one way of people reproducing.
That's fair. I do pose a related question, sort of similar. If an American moves to a developing country, a country like somewhere in Africa, let's say, because they really wanted to live there and they're experiencing all these struggles that the African people deal with, do they get to say, I am an African and I went through all of these things and I know exactly
That's an interesting question.
what they're going through?
To some extent, if I immigrate to Africa and I move to Africa.
This is not about oppression. Oh, it's conflating two different things. He's not talking about oppression now. If you emigrate to a country and have citizenship, then yeah, you could probably say, well, I'm an African citizen. You emigrate to this country and get UK citizenship. You can say, I'm a UK citizen. I am in some way British. That's got nothing to do with oppression. So we're not actually really answering this. We're going off on a tangent.
Whatever, I don't know what development country you're talking about, but like, let's say I move to an African country, and in that country, I'm a citizen of that country, and I now face the oppression of that country. Well, because I'm a citizen, I now get to say, like...
Wait. So you don't face the oppression of a whole country until you're a citizen of it? It is a tacit admission that patriarchy is actually good for men, only shit for women. Kind of funny to think of it that way. Yeah. It's just ridiculous. Like, off the top of my head, there are so many ways that patriarchal society harms men. I think I've experienced that. Or I've experienced what I perceive to be that, certainly. And that's part of why I transitioned. It's probably partly why lots of trans women end up trans women. Because they don't feel like they can live up to those, like, patriarchal roles, those social roles of being a man, what is expected of you in a patriarchal society. It's, like, so mind-blowingly obvious that I don't know how he is, like, continuing on this conversation. I don't know how this person is, like, kind of rolling over currently.
Yeah, I'm a citizen of this African country. So I now get to go, oh, hey, I'm Nigerian, because I've been, just like somebody who immigrates and is a citizen of America gets to say I'm American.
Okay, what if you emigrate to Nigeria as a white American and you're fabulously wealthy, and then you take on citizenship, but you aren't really taking on the same oppression? Like, we're conflating two different things. She's talking about, like, oppression, and you start talking about citizenship. Like, whether you're a citizen or not of a country, I'm pretty sure doesn't really affect much, like, your oppression scale. In fact, being a citizen of a country probably means you're less likely to be oppressed. Do you know what I mean? Because you have more rights in terms of, like, you being in that country.
American now, you would still experience the oppression those people experience. It would just be different, right? It would be a different level of experience, but it would still be sharing the experience.
Enjoying the stream.
Right. But I also want to point out that as an American moving to an African country, you would not experience the developmental aspects of living in that undeveloped country or lesser developed country. So what do you
mean by that? I don't understand what you mean by that.
Well, if you grow up as an American and you're, say, 16, you say, I want to go to Africa, and your family lets you go to Africa, you did not, like, go through puberty. You didn't develop your brain inside of this African country. So
what are we on? I thought it was an interesting question, saying if you emigrate, are you, like, oppressed along the same lines as the people there? Because you're, like, part of that now. It's not really based on your oppression. If you're, like, a Nigerian citizenship and call yourself Nigerian when you were born in America or something, very different from tying people's experience together and saying, this category exists. The through line of it is oppression. Like, now we're, like, going off on one, man.
Go to Africa. You did not, like, go through puberty. You didn't develop your brain inside of this African country. So you really don't know what it is like to be an African until you've been there for a good while.
What?
Yeah, this analogy has run its course. Take it back to sex. We need an answer for why he thinks that patriarchal oppression is a good yardstick for what is and isn't a woman. This is a dog shit argument. He's probably going to completely dog walk her on this, and that's fine. Okay, I think we get back on topic here. I don't care about that argument at all. Waste of time.
Right, but I guess
Countries only
biology doesn't care about the patriarchy. Yes, very true. Very, very true.
have legal distinctions.
Yeah, that's a good point. Does he even think misandry exists? But then, if it doesn't exist, then how the fuck are trans men men? By his own metric. So women are women if they experience oppression. But men can't be like the opposite of that. Men can't be the absence of oppression, because then trans men aren't men. They're women, because trans men experience oppression.
If we're talking about legalness, then sure, a trans woman could legally be a woman, but I'm saying...
Yeah, legal can't be the definition. You can't say a woman is a woman because of law and a man is a man because of law. That doesn't make sense.
Woman is like a blanket term, I suppose.
But again, what experience does a trans woman go through, or what experience do cis women go through that no trans woman is going to be able to understand?
Periods, pregnancy. Of course, that's not every single cis woman. But women aren't women because of experiences. That doesn't make any sense.
Like, right? Because you say you've brought up like biological stuff, but not every cis woman goes through that.
They don't have to have. We already know that it's your reproductive role, and that things go wrong, and that biology isn't that simple, and that a design doesn't always get followed 100% of the time. You have to justify why it has to be an experience that every single person has, you know?
There are some cis women who will never know what it means to give birth to a child.
But no men, and by extension, no trans women, can and will ever experience this. A cis woman could potentially. So why not base it on your potential to be able to give birth? Like either because you're too young, because you have some condition that one day we might come up with a cure for, etc., etc. What if we cured infertility forever? Would he then have to concede that yes, periods, giving birth, are things that cis women experience that trans women don't, and thus trans women are not the same as cis women?
Right. So if a trans woman is raised as a boy, she's going to experience a boy's childhood.
That's a fair point. Socialization is important.
Sure, but there's going to be a level of, yes, but they were forced. Like, there's going to be a level here of...
They were forced.
And this is gearing into a bit of trans misogyny in the topic frame, but there's going to be a level here of like, because they had to live their life socializing as, I won't say they were a boy, but socializing as a boy. This is going to negatively affect.
Why is it necessarily going to negatively affect a trans person if they're socialized as a boy? Like, that's just their experience. That's just how they grow up. That's how they go through life. And every boy is socialized different. Plenty of trans women. Like, trans doesn't even rely on having gender dysphoria. So this doesn't really work. Because some trans people don't have dysphoria. So why would they be negatively affected by being socialized as a boy?
Them because they are being forced to socialize this way. They're not
like, this isn't a hard and fast rule either. It's interesting how we assume that this is the case for 100% of trans people, and we know it's not true. But like, whenever someone else makes a point, you have to show how it's like 100% of women that experience this, that, or the other, or you can't base womanhood on that. But like, we haven't even established that, so.
Allowed to be socialized in the way they want. And I would say the experience of being forced in a society to act a very specific way,
which men also experience,
under threat of, I don't know what
what about a gay boy that is like socialized in a way where they're expected to be very masculine, where they maybe have to indulge in like interests that are just not of interest to them because they're like stereotypically masculine things, and this person isn't stereotypically masculine. So boys can also find themselves negatively affected by their socialization, for sure.
The experience of being forced in a society to act a very specific way under threat of, I don't know what I don't know what I'll say the threat is, but to act a very specific way is like quintessential to how women have been treated in this country forever. Right? Like so they can easily share in that experience with you.
Yeah, like the other thing is as well, men and women can share lots of experiences in general. So you have to pick which ones would mean that you're a woman and which don't. But it doesn't make sense to do it by experiences.
Of, hey, I was forced and conditioned to be what society wanted me to be, and they wouldn't let me engage in who I am.
The other thing is, lots of people who feel this way, to an extent, is in their heads. I think I felt this way. I was forced and conditioned to be what society wanted me to be. I think that was in my head to an extent. I think we generalize our experiences to how society wants us to be, when actually who wants us to be what could be rather a small number of people. Like, a lot of us maybe just don't find our people and feel like we're expected to be something else than what we truly are. That doesn't mean society wants you to be a certain way. That means you haven't found your people. That means you haven't found people that accept you for who you are. This like generic appeal to society is very lazy, I think. I don't like these kind of arguments.
I was forced and conditioned to be what society wanted me to be, and they wouldn't let me engage in who I actually was. This is
Yeah, and men can experience.
How women felt when they weren't allowed to get educations. This is how women felt when they were forced into motherhood or nurturing roles. This is how women felt when they weren't allowed to engage in like sports the same way. Like these.
Oh, you don't want to talk about sports, Jesus Christ. This person thinks men should go into women's sports, so. Is it patriarchal to tell women they can't have sport that precludes men when men are stronger and, more athletic than you?
This seems like a pretty shared experience that you may have with these people.
And if you stretch it ever so slightly, you'll realize lots of men have this experience. Well done, Jovan. This is a dog shit argument. He's only winning because this person is clueless.
Right. So I will say I really appreciate you debating with me about this, because you have changed my perspective on it.
Fuck me, man. Actually, fuck me.
And I think that's the purpose of debate. I didn't come here to argue. I came here to share opinions and learn. So I do appreciate that. And I also wanted to maybe touch on the subject of teaching. See, what was it on your video? Not gender affirming care. Teaching LGBTQ topics in schools.
Okay.
I come from a kind of unique situation where, as I was growing up, my friend group in school was the LGBTQ community. And I was desperate to fit in because I was going through puberty, my body was changing, I had no idea what was going on, and these were people willing to take me in. But in a way, they sort of changed my perspective on who I
Was that simple to change a TERF's mind? Well, there's some dipshit TERFs out there, listen. If Jovan can change your perspective, you're fucked. Well, yeah, this is like what he does. He's not actually good at this. He's good at debating, I guess, in that sense. He's better than the people that call in, which is to be expected, surely. Like, his arguments are dog shit. Every time. How is it that every time I watch any of this guy's videos, he's making the dumbest arguments? We watched a thing about trans sports a while ago. He's acting like Patricio Manuel is an example of how trans men can cross over into men's sports and dominate just as easily as the other way around. When that guy did not fucking dominate fucking anything. He won like 3 fights and lost 1, and that's his whole record.
I am by telling me who I should be. So, for example, I was a tomboy, and everybody would always tell me, oh, you're trans, you're supposed to be a man. And for a while, I believed.
Oh, he immediately doesn't think that this person's telling the truth. He immediately thinks this person's lying about her experience. Is it patriarchal to deny a woman her experience?
Them. And then I kind of said, no, I don't think I'm trans. I think I just want to be a girl. And they're like, oh, well, you're a lesbian then. And it's.
But I'm sorry. Who told you you were trans?
My friend group. And then when I went to teachers about it, they affirmed it.
He doesn't believe this at all. These kind of things, when someone says it happens, someone like this automatically doesn't believe them.
Okay.
So I guess what I'm trying to say is there is like radicalized information in there, and kids are just so confused. They don't know what's really going on with their bodies at the time. They're already confused with puberty. And like, I thought I was a cat when I was 5. So I guess what I'm trying to say is
maybe I just grew up in a different era. Like, I'm 32. I've never.
Oh, none of this ever happened. Well, no, I didn't experience any of this either. I was a bit effeminate as a kid. Everyone just called me gay and called me like the F slur and stuff. It's a bit different nowadays. Like, if you're 25, yeah, maybe school is a completely different experience for someone that was born like 7 years later than you. That's very like possible. He doesn't want to believe it. No, of course he doesn't.
right.
I've never met anyone who like legitimately thought they were an animal. I've met people that pretend to be animals because like it's fun.
Right. Well, I was 5.
But,
I was
like,
a little kid.
Yeah, I've worked in education my whole life.
What is his job?
I've worked in kindergarten classrooms and never had a kid tell me that they.
Yikes. Well, just because they didn't tell you, maybe they won't tell you. Do kids often like involve adults in their like role play, in their like play pretend and stuff? Like, no, they're probably pretending to be cats with each other. Maybe you get the odd kid that like internalizes it a bit too much or some shit. Like, kids go through phases. Kids think things that aren't rational or true.
Actually thought they were a cat. Like, it's not
but
that you
I
think
also
you
see
don't.
that popping up a lot more nowadays as well.
Where, like specifically?
In schools.
But like where?
Kindergarten schools, teachers are affirming. Kids can act however they want to act, and I think some of that. I think to a degree, it can be a bit damaging.
Wait. What school is telling kids that they're cats though?
They're not telling them they're cats. The kids are saying, "Hey, I'm a cat," and the teacher's like, "Okay." And then if that kind of behavior.
To be fair, bringing this kind of thing to a debate like this is probably not a great idea. Like, you probably don't want to like get stuck on a point like this because you are speaking anecdotally.
Behavior doesn't really get corrected. It becomes a habit of that
He's such a performative fucking douchebag, isn't he? Jesus Christ.
child.
I'm sorry. What school is telling kids that are just going, "You're a cat. Okay, that's who you are." Like, what? Where? What name? What school specifically?
How dare you? You just really upset someone. Saying things like should be in an asylum.
Well, I didn't say that.
Like, admittedly, this seems extremely rare, like not something that is like some kind of epidemic. But I think generally when people talk about this stuff, it's to kind of stretch it and be like, well, they're going to affirm someone who thinks they're a cat. They're going to affirm kids that think they're like the other sex. Isn't it kind of all the same in a way?
I just said if they want to identify as a cat or something, then they're like genuinely unwell. Then they've gone. Yeah, they're crazy.
You're questioning their identity.
And the problem is when you say that you're questioning their identity, that's not the problem. The problem is it sounds like they're bullying someone. You tell them not to be so mean. Like, how does it affect you? Is it really the end of the world as long as they're not distracting anyone, doing stuff to disrupt people? Instead, we say that you're questioning their identity. So there is evidence of this happening. And someone like this is not going to have seen this because people like this don't look out for things like that. At the same time, this is not a good debate point.
Specifically.
I would say a lot of schools out in California are
Because, yeah, like, they don't have any evidence. So, like, yeah, this is not a good point to be on.
doing a lot very heavy in the affirming sort of thing.
I'm
from the South, and I've experienced it.
There's not a single school in the United States where a teacher is affirming that a child is a cat.
How does he know that? Okay, so the other person is not producing evidence. Not a good point to make. But he's just saying it's not happening.
It's not happening anywhere.
When I say school,
How does he know this?
I mean like elementary school.
So do
and
I.
then going into, right.
It's not happening.
All right, well, agree to disagree then.
Well,
I
not
guess
agree to
the point I'm
disagree.
trying to make
If you
is-
don't have evidence of it happening, then like it didn't happen.
Well, no. If there isn't evidence of something happening, you can consider it not happening. Not if this person doesn't have evidence. Like, oh, everyone sucks here. This is just terrible. This is dire.
I mean, you could find videos of it on YouTube, TikTok, anywhere you
I can
look.
find videos.
I'm sure there are articles about it.
I'm going to find videos of a teacher affirming that a student is a cat.
Okay.
I'm asking you. Is that what I'm going? If I look this up, that's what I'm going to find.
Yes.
First thing that I find on
He's not showing this. How are you supposed to trust what he's even looking up? Does he show his screen? No, he doesn't. Okay. This is a bullshit conversation. Both of these people are idiots. Let's see if there's anything else. Oh, and then they just fold because he looked up something that they can't even see. This is like painful.
I've been seeing, but it's also entirely possible that just the internet, loud minorities, and by that I mean how they say like all women hate a man that's emotionally vulnerable. That's obviously not true. That's a loud minority. That's what I mean when I say that.
I mean, here's okay. Here's my answer to this. teachers aren't influencing the way students' genders or what students' genders are.
How do you know? Again, if you're teaching about this kind of thing, how do you know that some kids aren't going to internalize it and think that they might be something they're not? Maybe it's made out in a way that's attractive to them personally based on their circumstance and experience, which the teachers are not likely to be privy to.
It's not how that works. You can have
He doesn't know how this works. He's just making this up right now.
teachers who may be trying to be sensitive. And so if a student comes to them and goes, hey, I think I'm trans, they're not just, the teacher's not going to go, no, you're not. Right. But we know from evidence that it's actually kind of really hard to make someone be a gender that they're not.
What does that even mean? No one is or isn't a gender, for one thing, because gender is socially constructed. It's hard to make someone be a gender that they're not. But we know that social contagion exists. We know that even Marcy Bowers believes in social contagion to some extent. We know that kids can be influenced to think they're trans. If it's that hard to make someone be a gender they're not, why do detransitioners exist? And why do we seem to be seeing more and more of them?
Like, notice how you are not trans, right? Because you weren't. It wasn't your gender. Your gender wasn't boy. So you didn't become.
But boy isn't a gender. Boy is a sex. Male. Young male. Boy.
Boy.
Right.
Most people who detransition do it well before they received any sort of, like 99% of them.
No, that's not detransition. That's desistance. He doesn't even know the difference. This person fucking talks about this so much. He like puts himself out there as this trans ally debate lord. He doesn't know the difference between detransition and desist. He's describing desistance right now. 99% of detransitioners detransition before they've received any sort of medical care. Where's that from? Where's that study? He just makes things up. How is that? How are you going to prove something like that? How does he get to make like positive claims without any evidence? And that's fine. But when someone else does it, it's the biggest problem in the world. And he knows what to like drill down on because he's like experienced in debating. This other person doesn't. So he knows he can get away with like all sorts of double standards. It's so fucking annoying.
Detransition before they've received any sort of medical care. So like, it's actually really hard to convince somebody.
Like, where's that from?
Hey, you're trans if you're not trans. So I think it's a
This is bullshit. He's just making this up.
issue. What we should be doing is we should be upping education when it comes to things like sex and gender so that children aren't confused, so that they can go, oh shit, it's not that there's something wrong with me or that I have like a demon in me. It's that I'm just this.
How would someone be talked to being into being trans? Or if you present it in a way that's attractive to them, it's going to be different for everyone. And they wouldn't have considered it otherwise. Then that's potentially a way of doing it. Look at someone like Chris Chan. It was suggested to them to start like presenting more feminine to attract women. And then he goes the whole hog and becomes trans because he's like autistic and impressionable. So like impressionable people can be brought into this kind of thing. You've got like egg culture where like, you know, gender non-conforming males are like virtually preyed upon. People will try and convince them that they're trans. You've got people that are in like friendship groups where most of them are trans and they're the one that isn't, and they're not necessarily treated as well because of it. That might influence them to become trans. Like there's so many different ways.
This thing, how many kids who grow up gay go because I've never seen being gay normalized, and because the people around me keep talking all this shit about gay people, I must be wrong.
Wait, so then gay men can experience a certain kind of oppression under the patriarchy?
Must be something wrong with me. Education corrects that. Education, teaching LGBTQIA topics in school, teaching children the gay people and trans.
How do we know that teaching LGBTQIA in school isn't going to lead kids to think they're things that they're not? How do we know that that doesn't happen? All he said is, well, I think it's hard to convince someone to be trans. And that's only one letter in LGBTQIA, by the way. I thought I was gay for a while just because men actually paid attention to me. Like, Jesus Christ. It happens more easily than I think he thinks. And like the younger they are, the more impressionable they are, the more likely you could convince them of something that is not true.
Trans people and queer identities and going through all of that,
if you can convince a child with no evidence that God exists, is it that hard to convince them that they have a gender identity that doesn't match their sex.
Increases tolerance. It allows children to come out more. It decreases the rates of depression and bullying in schools.
I have no idea what any of this is based on.
It quite literally has nothing but positive benefits.
Fuck me, man. He just gets to say this kind of stuff. And like, what I notice is the longer the debate goes on, the more he just stops caring about making actual arguments and just starts making things up. That's what he does. He makes things up. He doesn't know what he's talking about. I don't know how people watch this shit.
I agree with that, but I do think that
He just agrees. No standard of evidence whatsoever. Man on the internet said it was true.
those sorts of teachings should be
You don't have to agree with it, you know. You can just say, well, I don't really have a way of verifying that. Personally, I'm not so sure. I probably can't really argue with it at this point in time. We can move on to another part of the conversation or whatever.
left for middle school around the same time teaching about sex and things along those lines. I have been seeing evidence. This one you can look up, and I really do know you'll find something. There are teachers reading children's books, like very simplified children's books, where the characters are trans, and it's kind of explaining to the students. And it's
Good.
I understand that they want to make sure the kids know there's nothing wrong with them, but I don't think that's
The kids should just learn about a very simplified version of trans where society told me I was a boy, but actually I'm a girl, even though none of that's true and that is not realistic to anyone. We should just lie to kids.
necessary until after puberty.
So
and they
children
kind of
pre-puberty
narrate
should just
talk about sex.
wait. Children pre-puberty should just feel bad.
No one's saying that.
No.
Okay, well,
I think children
trans kids
pre-puberty are
exist prior to puberty, right? Most trans people start developing gender dysphoria at the age of 7.
Right.
I don't even know where that's from. The number seems to vary like heavily.
And puberty is typically around 9 to 13 years old. But I also
Plus-
want to bring up, say,
But why the fuck would you affirm a prepubescent kid as like trans when you know that they've got all that time until puberty? You don't need to like change their name. You don't need to do anything with them. You can let them like give you some cues as to how they want to look and stuff like that, and let them experiment with how they look. Let them experiment with what kind of stuff they want to do without putting a label on it. Surely isn't that the way you kind of fight against like gender roles, is to not enforce them at all? And like whatever they feel like really it should just be about, well, just do and present yourself, etc. How you think makes you happy, rather than how your parents want you to, or how your parents think you want to, you know?
Trans people just exist, right? So like we should just let them know trans people exist.
But we don't even have a good metric for what makes someone trans. That's the worst part.
What's wrong with this? Would you say the same thing? Would you say that we shouldn't read a kid's storybook in school? If it, like, let's say I have a book where it's 2 penguins and those penguins get married and they're both boy penguins, and it's just a storybook about the 2.
This storybook that he's describing wouldn't be encouraging anyone to medicalize as a child, put themselves up for potential like health risks, necessarily sterilize them if they follow to its conclusion. Like that's the massive difference between gay and trans, and why we can't just compare the two ad nauseum whenever we're losing a debate. Not that he's losing, because these people both suck, but like all being gay entails is like dating different kinds of people. It's much less invasive. So there are less potential consequences for teaching children about gay marriage than there are teaching them about, well, some simplified version of what it means to be trans and how to transition and stuff.
2 penguins, like, it's just a picture book. Should we read that in kindergarten classes?
you raise a good point.
If your answer
That's not a good point. Fuck me. It's not the same.
is yes, then I don't know what the difference would be.
The difference is that gay and trans aren't the same fucking thing.
That's fair. I also wonder about gender.
People need to stop calling this fucking dickhead. He's an idiot. But if you're also an idiot, you have nothing to gain from talking to someone like this. Just don't. Just don't. He doesn't know what he's talking about. I hope the fucking person that called into him sees this. Maybe I've been harsh. Maybe I've called you an idiot. I don't know. But you have to understand that this is not good. You have to understand these people are just like twisting your brain around and relying on you not knowing all that much.
affirming care for minors. for example, I understand that a lot from what you've told me, and I appreciate it. These minors do experience gender dysphoria early on.
Well, they think they do. First off, you might think you have gender dysphoria. You might have another problem altogether, but you're projecting it onto your gender for whatever reason. You might be going through a phase, because kids do go through phases, especially around puberty, where they feel that gender dysphoria. It's the same with like sexuality. Many teenagers go through phases where they think they might be gay when they actually kind of grow out of it. Oh no, I'm not. Other people don't. That's the whole thing. Like, so the massive problem with saying that these minors experience gender dysphoria is, well, you have to show that. You have to show that A, that they experience this to any real degree, and that B, that means that the best course of action is to transition them. It's incredibly unclear as to which kids actually should be transitioned and which shouldn't. There's no way to like sort them. And then like we talk about lots of kids just desist naturally. Well, they also would desist through puberty if their puberty weren't being blocked potentially.
Or very early on. But I think that they should be allowed to, in an ideal world, be educated on what's going on and only be allowed to make their decision post becoming an adult.
So
because
one of the issues with this is when they're adults, they will have gone through puberty.
Yes, which is necessary. They should go through puberty. And if they still want to transition, then fair enough.
And going through puberty of the sex that you don't align with.
What does it mean to not align with your sex? In what way does any person not align with their sex?
Is going to make gender affirming care harder and more expensive.
This isn't even necessarily true. If you go through puberty blockers, you can't have like an inversion vaginoplasty. You have to have something else.
Now that you're older, because you have to undo all of the things puberty did.
Transitioning doesn't undo things puberty did. That's just part of you. What's the consequence of not going through puberty? Like, this is all just about passing. Well, the idea that transition is all about passing, to anyone that watches Jovan Bradley, presumably they think that that's toxic.
Right.
It's like cis-normative or whatever.
So, like, let's say you're a man. In fact, let's say you're a trans woman who's gone through male puberty. Your voice is going to be deeper,
right?
And now you have to do vocal training.
Well, no, you don't have to, and most of them don't. Most of them seem perfectly fine, not bothering with their voice. I guess they just don't have dysphoria around that. And that's the thing. He's basing trans around dysphoria now because it's convenient to. When trans isn't supposed to be about dysphoria. No one thinks that. It's about gender identity. It's nothing to do with dysphoria, according to lots of people. Dysphoria is just something you might experience. Like, I disagree with that, but like, it's a bit weird how you can flip between positions like that, where you don't define trans around dysphoria, but everything you're talking about it indicates that you do define it around that.
Make your voice be a bit more.
What's this guy's qualifications to be speaking on these subjects? Well, no one needs a qualification to talk about this, to be fair. It's not like I have any, apart from being trans myself.
Or to what is typical of feminine voices. You may even need vocal feminization surgery.
No one needs any of this. This is all cosmetic. And like, if you're truly a woman, then that's a woman's voice regardless of pitch, right? Some women have deep voices.
Let's say you're a trans man and you've gone through female puberty. Now you have breasts, and now you have to get rid of breast tissue. You might have to.
You don't have to do that either. You might have to have breast augment. What?
You're a trans man and you've gone through female puberty. Now you have breasts, and now you have to get rid of breast tissue. You might have to have breast augmentation. Like,
why would a trans man get a breast augmentation? I don't get it, man. He just says these things. And because the kinds of people that call in aren't very intelligent, they don't hold him to account for any of it.
Like, you're going to have to go through more steps, and it's going to cost you more.
You don't have to go through any of them.
More money, then bada bing, bada boom. Here's the thing we don't need to do.
The thing is puberty.
Just forgot his point towards the end there.
It takes a lot of extra money, I agree, but it is ultimately, in a way, reversible. If you stunt your growth before puberty, that's not reversible.
Yes, it is.
I don't think that's true either. So if you stop your puberty and then go through it 10 years later, you're just going to go through the exact same puberty? No one believes that. The way they get around it is, the puberty blockers regime, you're not supposed to be on it for more than a couple of years. even that might lead to irreversible changes to you. And we know this, like, your genitals don't go properly. You're probably not going to have vaginal inversion. And even if you come off puberty blockers, is your genital going to grow to the size that it would have? Are your bones going to get to the kind of strength that they would have? Jovan, biology is incredibly varied, but how can a trans woman feel like a woman unless she follows all the typical attributes? Yeah. Suddenly a woman is like very definable and based on specific like average features. When surely if a trans woman is a woman because of oppression, then none of this shit matters anyway. Why do they need to? Why not teach people, well, if you're a woman, you're a woman. That deep voice you have, oh, that's a woman's deep voice. That flat chest, the facial hair and stuff. Well, you're still a woman because that's how you feel. So all of this is kind of off topic anyway to what you actually think trans is.
And that decision is being given to children who don't have the prefrontal cortex to fully understand the consequences of what they're doing.
This is true. I don't know how he would hand wave this, but I'm sure he'll find a way.
All they know is how they feel in the now.
An issue here is that it is reversible.
Fully reversible in all contexts. Doesn't matter how long you wait before going through your puberty, past when you should have.
Typically, the effects of, for instance, pubertal.
What about the fact that the vast majority of kids on puberty blockers for being trans go on to irreversible steps? Doesn't that mean it's part of a process that is very much irreversible?
Suppressants, when you're on them for 12 to 24 months, which is the standard for gender affirming medical care, they're negligible because you're not.
Well, doesn't this depend on the person?
On them for long enough for them to do long-term harm.
Yeah, that's going to vary. For some people, that's more than long enough.
Your body will start growing again. You will start doing all of these things.
I don't think he knows it. He's just such a fucking blagger.
You can take the gender affirming hormones, and then if you decide this isn't for me, you stop taking them, and you can go through puberty after.
Yeah, depending on a litany of factors. So if you're on pubertal suppressants, if you're just blocking your puberty, then yes, after a set amount of time, if it's been like 12 months, and you're like, this isn't for me, you will just restart your puberty.
And there's no consequences for doing that, like ever?
If you're on feminizing hormones or masculinizing hormones, there might be some things you need to correct, and there might be some long-term side effects depending on the length of time that you're on them. But typically, if you're only on them for like a year, you're not going to have some massive long-term side effects.
So typically, so it's not necessarily reversible. It's just usually reversible. So some people are just going to get unlucky, but we shouldn't worry about that, right?
Effects affecting this is why you have people who detransition and have been able to live successful, normal lives, because detransitioning is a thing.
Has he ever listened to a detransitioner that isn't still part of the gender cult? I don't imagine that's true.
All right.
But one of the ways that we can stop, just really quickly, one of the ways we can stop that from happening is teaching people from a young age about what it means to be trans, how you might know you're trans.
But what are you teaching people? How do you teach children how they might know they're trans? Like, what are you actually teaching them? What are examples of any of these? It's all very well saying, well, you just teach children to know if they're trans or if they're not trans. But it seems very confusing. It seems two kids might have the exact same feeling that end up one of them transitioning and one of them not, because it can mean different things to different people. And all of this teaching kids what it means to be trans, isn't it normally just like preferences for opposite gender things? Well, that's not being the opposite sex or the opposite gender. So again, I can see this going badly very quickly. Are you teaching them what it means to be trans? Or are you leading them to think that they might be when they're not? How do you control for that kind of thing happening? Because you can't just say, oh, well, that doesn't happen. That doesn't work.
And what if you're one of these other things, right? If they get this
the growth plates in your bones literally close. After a certain point, you aren't going to grow taller. Yeah. I've heard a lot of things about even just being on puberty blockers for a little while and stopping. Like, boys end up lacking genital growth. They don't grow as tall as they should have. Their bones don't grow as strong as they should have. That can happen to anyone. Might be a low chance. The average person that takes them for a bit and then stops. But you don't know who's going to be affected by what.
Information, they're not going to just jump straight to I'm trans, right?
Right.
How do you know this? You don't know any of this. You've no idea how children come to think that they're trans. How can you say any of this?
So, yeah.
All right. Well, I really do appreciate you chatting with me. I mean that. You've completely changed my perspective, and I'm going to do some thinking, but
Jesus Christ.
thank you for having me.
Yeah, sure.
And I hope you have a good day.
You too.
Goodbye.
Like, so unfriendly as well. I actually fucking hate this guy. Well, that was fucking painful.